Come out. We are live. Kaboom. I'm with Dr. Sanchez. We're hanging out. Dr. Marco Sanchez, Gilroy High School. We're just hanging out. Wanted to talk to him, ask him a few questions, see how he's doing, learn a little more about Gilroy High School. Let me pop these notes up. And what can I say about this gentleman? Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Sanchez, for those who don't know, a.k.a. Superman.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to interview, Roman. I have a lot of admiration for people that are in your business as realtors, and I've had the opportunity to talk on these tours they do where they have several dozen realtors and tell them about Gilroy High School and how it's changed and how it's evolved over the years.
Changed so much. The smell of garlic in the air.
It's a great bedroom community to the Silicon Valley, as they say. Very affordable compared to areas of San Jose. So I just want to put that plug in there. Lots of new builds south of the property of the campus, and so our enrollment's growing. It's a good school.
Let's talk about what we were talking about right when we walked in with the remodels going on. You were telling me we've got the first two-story.
Well, there's a $15 million facelift.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. It's recording anyways. There you go.
Gilroy received a few years ago, and
right.
The campus has been completely redone. It was it was an extreme makeover public school edition. Mm-hmm. They essentially just gave it a facelift, and it looks great. It's marvelous. There's the parking lot project, which is planned for this summer, which is going to completely redo the student parking lot, repave, resurface, and then solar panel covers. 7 rows of solar panel covers parking, and so we're excited about that. And then also a 2-story, 20 classroom math building. Awesome. That will replace the portable in the back part of the building.
I hate math, but so nice. So the solar panels, how does that work? I've always wondered that as well. So essentially, the goal is that they will one day run everything as far as the electricity and pay themselves off.
They'll pay for themselves essentially over time.
Okay.
Over time with it will generate funds over time and pay for stuff over time.
Right. In return that. And totally random question, but I was just curious. I've seen all the Eastside Union High School districts are starting to do that.
Yes,
they're kind of
San Jose Unified, Clovis Unified. I mean, it's really the way to go.
And they're using the parking lot structure for those who can't, and kind of just creating a hangar, creating a cover, and doing that over. And just in case you guys don't know, we're in the presence of an Olympian, one hell of an athlete. Well, first off, both Eastside San Jose products, let me say. And I was bragging to Coach that, I went to Pala, toughest neighborhood. I went to Lindell Elementary. Yep. And then he goes, really? I went to Shepherd. And that's when I said, okay, you got me there. Probably the only town I could think of a tougher area. And I was reading up last night, and one thing that kind of hit my heart was kind of talking more about your coach, and I think that's one of the big things we don't realize is how big of an influence coaches and those little people have in our lives. And I heard you say you were getting into fights. He dragged you by the ear and kind of brought you in. And I have a similar story when I transitioned from wrestling to basketball, and to this day I keep in touch with him with that fact. And I still don't think he understands what kind of. And that's the thing. You can ask everybody in the audience is name me one teacher that made have the biggest impact in your life, and you'll know right off the bat. Yep. And then if I say, tell me about all the other teachers, name them, and we'll have no idea. But so tell me about this gentleman.
Coach Ashmore was my middle school coach, and he's an awesome man, amazing. I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, California Wrestling Hall of Fame, and he was one of the presenters that was part of the program. So he's great. He did intervene at a very crucial time in my life where I was going nowhere fast, and got me plugged into the sport of wrestling. And thanks to him and wonderful teammates and the grace of God, really, I was able to change course and get in a positive direction and put my energies into more productive endeavors. And so then Coach Barajas was also an amazing influence. He was at Independence High School after I left Shepherd, of course, and graduated.
Older brother went there. It's supposed to be a junior college.
Yeah.
Turned
huge
into that.
campus, and then
okay, I'm
also,
in the shot still.
And then also Coach Shade, also, who is an amazing influence on my life, and then Coach Douglas at the Arizona State University. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have some really key people in my life to help me, and some great teachers also, very supportive community, and people that wanted to see me succeed. So
right. And Shepherd, man, and that was pretty amazing for you. The coach, how did he convince you to stay to wrestle? Because obviously there's a lot of distractions, a lot of reasons. You talk about how you got bit by the wrestling bug, and you told those kids before you left, because we were the same way, all full of ego, right? At first, and I'm going to show all of you guys. And I remember when I transitioned from Pallet to Quimby, we barely just went, a few blocks, few feet, and it was a completely different world, completely different transition.
Yes.
I think about the times of, my walks home from Pallet, the kind of trouble that I could get into. Obviously, your mom and dad were very supportive. Were they in the picture?
Yes. Well, my mom was very supportive. My dad also, but more so my mom. And she got behind me, and she ended up passing away when I was in the 8th grade. So that was a very, I dedicated that season to her, and I went undefeated that year after having a losing record the previous year. So that, mom was inspirational and motivational in that regard. Right. She never missed a match, and so when she wasn't there, I just wrestled on her behalf and in her honor and in her memory. But yeah. Just being in Shepherd Middle School, East San Jose in itself, just getting to school, sometimes you had to go through several neighborhoods. You would end up, sometimes running away from people that were trying to get you or after you. And
James Lake for me.
Yep, there you go. Here you go. So it's
so that must have really lit a fire in you as far as dealing with the grief of that. Would you say wrestling was the outlet,
It was.
I don't mean to get very personal, but in my mind, I can only imagine. I mean, if you didn't have that outlet, that even more could have sent you the other way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
How therapeutic is that to be able to do that? And that kind of transitions me into, I can never explain to people the off the mat principles. And I almost want to write a book, because it's in our mind. We don't know how to explain it, of everything other than the actual wrestling that really creates that discipline in your life. Kind of a really tough question, but like if you had to sum it up, say you're pitching this to a dad on why his son should wrestle. What are some of the? I mean, number one, I think work ethic, right?
It's the hardest sport in high school athletics, without a doubt.
Period.
And I sit on the CIF Federated Council and the Executive Committee, so I see sports from the 30,000 feet level, and as a principal and as a volunteer, as an assistant coach, I see it at the site level. So I can just tell you without a doubt that it is truly the hardest thing you will do in high school athletics, and in college, it gets even tougher. I mean, it's a grueling sport. So
far more mentally than physically. Would you say?
Both.
Would you agree?
Both, because it's the only sport that has a weight requirement.
Right.
So you have that aspect of the sport, and then you have the grueling training. If you want to be the best, you're going to have to be tremendously motivated, have a tremendous drive, and have some high goals, and be realistic about what it's going to take to get you there.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I loved. Some people are great at individual sports versus team sports. Team sports are important, but as far as life, at the end of the day, you can only control what you can control, right? And I feel wrestling had those aspects. And for me, I transitioned from 2nd grade to wrestling forever when I was 16, and that was huge for me because...
And you played basketball.
Yes,
too, right?
Yes. And my dad laughed me in my face. He wanted me to wrestle, but the one thing I think that really got me to leap and bound was all the work ethic I had from 2nd grade to sophomore year from wrestling, and kind of applying that. And
they're the same season, so...
Exactly. And thinking, really, I was growing like crazy and thinking like Dennis Rodman that, okay, I'm horrible, but you're not going to outwork me, and I don't mind bumping elbows.
Yep. The physical contact.
Down there, and a lot of times that's enough, getting garbage points, getting rebounds, and so forth. So that is, I think that is epic. Just a transition, because everybody talks to you about wrestling. That's all they talk to you about. Let's talk about... So you're back from ASU. You're security guard detail, some type of
okay. So transitioning into my career,
because everybody asks about wrestling. I want to talk about leadership. Right?
Yeah, Arizona State University, ASU, great wrestling program, national champions, nationally ranked for several years.
Okay.
Coach Douglas was the 1988 Olympic coach, so he himself a 2-time Olympian. It was a great place to be, and I thrived in that environment. Was able to be an All-American, be a national champion, and then train in the Sanchez Kids, which is a club part of it of the program, and it supported athletes that had Olympic aspirations. And so
year-round stuff, summer wrestling,
and traveling.
That's the key, I feel.
Going to Europe, going around the world, Europe, Asia, what have you, and just going up against the best. And so it was an ideal environment for me. But just like any athletes need an exit strategy from the sport. Okay, so I wasn't ready to finish wrestling or done with wrestling at that point in '93 when I graduated from Arizona State. So I did want to. My goal was to make 96 games, and so I needed to, of course, earn a living as well, and then get in a training environment that would support my goals. And so I was able to do that. I did start as a security guard at a high school.
You got to start somewhere. People hate that. I don't want to be a security guard. So you rather stayed home,
exactly.
right? You got
exactly.
to. I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're right. No, you got to start somewhere. It was, I worked in the fast food industry. I had jobs at Little Caesar's Pizza. I mean, I know what it's like to work and serve, and I'm not. That's not beneath me. When I get out of my car to come to this office, if I see a piece of garbage, I'm picking it up. And I'm going to lead by example. So, being a security guard and then working my way to my teaching credential, because I did have a degree, which is important. Like I said, you got to have an exit strategy. So when you leave the university, it's important for athletes to get that degree. 100%. And a lot of times, a lot of athletes, in certain cases, they don't get degrees.
Which usually a lot of them have no choice but to get into mixed martial arts because they didn't have an exit plan. Or money, or it could be other things.
Sure.
There are many mixed martial artists with...
There's a lot of opportunities that didn't exist back then that exist today. And MMA is, of course, one of them.
100%. And it's so funny that you go to get your associates at University of Phoenix, and it's funny how some of those people then they just catapult into getting their PhD. Yeah. Well, that probably wasn't even on their mind. Like, where did that kind of? You were like, oh, just keep going.
Just keep going. Well, as I started teaching, and teaching led to being the dean of students and activities director at the junior high, and then eventually to a vice principalship, and then ultimately principalship. And each one of those required more experience, more formal training and education. And so I just kept going. And then actually the United States Olympic Committee had a scholarship program also, so they paid for part of the master's degree. I joined the military reserves. I was in the Navy for 3 years as a CB and serving our country, which was a tremendous honor. And so that also gave me some assistance to pursue my finish my master's degree and go into my doctoral program, all while still competing, still, helping run a school,
right,
and
staying
competing at a high level,
staying debt free
as much as possible. Yes, it did help. It did help tremendously.
Because there's that there, but you got to think about our kids today. Realistically, I mean, I think it's a little bit to do with our system as well, but you can't put them in the right starting place by having them have something over their head right away, and I think that's unfortunate. Depending on what you want to do, if you want to be a businessman, I wouldn't say that. I think education is top. It's number one, and it's the most important thing. But as far as business, it depends on what your outcome is. Realistically, what you want to do. But education at the most basic level and the bachelor's level, I think, is essential for anybody.
And tuition costs have skyrocketed through the roof. Some of our former graduates, and if you look to the wall here, actually, if you look this way, you can see from the class of 2010, my first graduating class here, to the class of 2017 that just recently
talk about love.
Yeah, so
that's priceless memories.
There's a lot of great students that came out of Gilroy High, and a lot of them have incurred quite a bit of debt.
That's
going out to
the sketch.
That was a student that drew that for me. But yeah, there's a lot of students that come out of debt with, it's 6-figure debt, which is pretty. I just can't imagine that. I was very fortunate. I do have some student loans, but they're not even close. I had 3 degrees and less than $20,000. I mean, from 3 degrees, that's pretty good, So the kids are coming out $100,000 plus. It's very pricey.
And they don't read the fine print. I guess the only thing worse than credit card APRs sometimes are these graduate school loans. Yes. And my sister is a doctor now, but she's looking back and she's like, well, at the cost of close to $300,000 dead and so many years of my life gone, right?
It's a mortgage.
From that, yeah, absolutely. And there's obviously many pros. It's your dream if that's what you want to do, support it, but there's got to be a better way. And that's why I think we're starting to see a little more of, the Bernie movement and so forth. I think it was New York, who if you're actually a resident of New York, right, the tuition be free. I think that's a great move, and it's an incentive for them that obviously you can't be out of state. You have to be from New York. But let's talk about education, Dr. Sanchez. We know you're a stud. We know everything that you do. If you don't, check his resume. But what really sparked that for you? One quote I love to say is, education is the key to the change of perception in anything. And I always thought it was MLK, but the more I look it up, I can't find it. He probably said it. A lot of people probably said it. But what really sparked that for you? Was it the kind of transition of the ways things worked out, or did you know you always, I just want to be around people, man?
The influencers in my life that I mentioned earlier, the coaches, a lot of coaches are educators. And a lot of the teachers that I came in contact with that showed an interest in me and saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. They were all educators. And so I always wanted to be like that. I thought that was a noble way to give back to your community and give back to the next generation and the next generation. Just to your right there's a picture of my high school principal that came out he's retired now, Mr. Chamorro, who just came out to visit.
Independence.
From Independence, correct. And in Overfelt later on. Still an influence in my life, and we're still in touch. A lot of the people that I mentioned earlier, I'm still in touch with them. They are influential people and made a big difference in my life. And the kids that you showed in the pictures here, they come back and visit, and it's always nice to hear that in some small way I had a chance to be a part of their success, and so I just continue to
in their life
to support them verbally.
That's got to be the greatest karma, right? The greatest way to pay forward. For those who believe in that or whatever you believe in, I feel like you have to. That's the epitome of selfless service to educate people. That's amazing. I had a coach like that as well. He's the one that pointed me out when I was at 6'2". Dennis Fernandez, he came out of retirement to coach at Evergreen, and he just said, "You come over here." And he's a very soft-spoken guy as well, but the impact that he's had to this day. I mean, I put together the first alumni game and kind of honored him. I mean, so many years at San Jose High. And he took Andrew Hill to Final Four, and to this day, we'll still keep in touch with him. And I think he's kind of writing a book on his experiences in the Vietnam War, and he kind of gave back. He created the Sons of San Jose. If you look right next to the Shark Tank, you'll see Sons of San Jose, the memorial. So him and his wife put that together, just kind of listening out the kids. And at that time, they were obviously just kids. Right? In San Jose High, with the draft going on. The kind of impact he had on my life, and to still have that unconditional person I can call about whatever moves going on. What do you think? And I know he's gonna give it to me straight. And that's a really, really beautiful thing. No stress. We can always upload this later, and it's great. Look at this. You got so many people anticipating it, and that's only going to make them want to see this more when I finally put it up. Let's keep strolling through. Let's see how we're doing. My whole goal is forget about what we think. Focus on the audience. Focus on those kids. I know some Subway drive-through employees are going to try to sneak in here and have their opinions, and that's why I kind of put together these kind of creative ones last night that probably nobody has talked to you about. Let's start with one. Let's start with goals. As silly as it sounds, how important do you think actually writing them down is? Obviously, you got to put in the work. You got to do the action, right? You got to write them down and dream all day. But what does that mean to you? And then I'll say something about how I feel.
Well, writing them down is make it as tangible as possible. But more importantly, you have to internalize them. And so, regardless of where you're at, you have to be able to see it written down on paper. You're taking that with you. So it's got to be here. It's got to be in the heart.
And specific as possible.
And then
include a number in their whatever, right?
It could be, for me, example, it could have been, I wanted to win the county championship, I wanted to win the state championship, I wanted to win the national title, I wanted to be an All-American, I wanted to be Olympian. So all those were progressions, and so they occurred at junctures in my life where I achieved those goals, checked it off, and then moved on for the next one. But it also told me that I had to point everything I did, my behavior, my habits, in that direction to move towards that goal. And so that meant tremendous sacrifices. It meant outworking opponents. It meant going to competitions that were going to test me and tell me where I was at, right, what I needed to do, and where, so goals are tremendous. They're important. Yogi Berra once said, if you don't have any goals, you'll end up somewhere else. Mm-hmm. You need to know where you're going, and right, so you have to have those goals, right, and otherwise you'll end up somewhere else.
It's crazy to me how people kind of refuse to write them down, but I think by simply writing them down, what it does is immediately creates this tunnel vision, as opposed to kind of bleeding aimlessly, but something's gonna happen. Or let me set 3 random goals. I feel like by writing that down, not only just writing in existence, but I feel like everything else kind of begins to narrow and control. And I heard somewhere that it's almost 70% of success showing up, but is also writing down those goals and what you
committing to it.
And committing to that.
Committing to it. And there's a lot of kids that I encounter on a daily basis that don't have that concept down and are just, they flounder, and they're going from day to day and aimlessly just kind of going through life. And it was, I always had something that I could aspire and shoot for, and along the way, reaching that goal, I got the education and and got the career, but it was the outcome of pursuing a goal.
That's an incredible question, but what do you think that is? What is it that's, you've seen all these champion wrestlers, what is it that is that drive, that spark? Everyone says that, struggle, failures, the background, that's what makes people what they are. We see that common trait, and that's another question I listed, but obviously a very tough question. What do you feel that, what if you haven't had a tragedy in your life? What if you have a golden spoon in your mouth and have everything it is? Is it wrong to say that that person can still have that incredible hunger and drive? They can. Where do you feel that it comes from? Because you hear it, how bad do you want it? All these motivational speeches.
Having been in the sport almost over 30 years.
Is it genetic disposition? Is it
35 years? I've encountered a range of people in the sport of wrestling, and it's probably the same in a lot of other sports, where they come from an array of backgrounds that are just very diverse, income-wise, ethnicity, race,
I agree.
Different countries. I've traveled the world. I've seen wrestlers that came from backgrounds with dirt floors and
Yoel Romero, we'll talk about that.
Yoel Romero is a great example. I mean, people from Cuba. I mean, you go to Cuba and there's these guys are smuggling cigars to sell to you so they could put food on the table back home. During competitions when they left the country, a lot of them would defect.
Right. So
they came from very tough circumstances, but they were great wrestlers.
Right.
And then you have some wrestlers that came from privilege and they did well as also. So I mean, it's really what you put in. You get out what you put in.
I was about to say, is it environment? But you just debunked that. Those are 2 completely different environments. So it's not that. It's literally.
Well, it's important to be in the right training environment.
Yes.
So regardless of what home or where you came out of, what background, if you get in the right training environment.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron, and Gilroy High is a great example of that.
Well, let's go into that. People are making straight documentaries, and I want to avoid that because I know people come in here asking you all the time. What do you? Okay, I went to Quimby Oak, 10 straight league championships. 10 straight league championships when it comes with the Lobos. Shout out to Sam Spengler. He has everything to do with that. But when we would finally go to counties, and everybody wanted their name on the banner at counties, I would say more than 50% of every weight class of county was South Valley wrestlers. And I'm old. This is 2005 that I graduated high school. 2002, 2001.
Ancient, Roman.
But and there's still a powerhouse. Is it the feeder middle schools, the South Valley? What do you attribute to it? Is it a few families?
It's a community. First of all, it's a community. It's people like Bertie Marr, like Charlie Morales. I'm talking about the founders of the Gilroy Hawks Club. We have
is that right there? Year-round
competition.
Year-round programs, solid ones.
Solid club programs. Kids starting at the age of 5, 4. By the time they hit high school, they already have 10 years of wrestling experience. So many of them do. We have 3 middle schools that all have wrestling programs. They all have cross-country programs. They have track programs. So their athletics is valued here in this community. And so by the time a lot of those wrestlers get here, they're very, very seasoned veterans. And as ninth graders are in positions to
They're not waiting the first few months before season to get in shape and actually try.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me? No way.
Yeah. And we have great coaching at this level. Coach Varela, very dedicated coach, goes year-round, travels the country, taking these wrestlers and exposing them to the very highest levels of competition everywhere in the country. Coach Varela has been great. Coach Gonzalez, Armando Gonzalez, prior to him. And then Coach...
Armando was around during my year.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw him wrestle. And he looked a little chub bub with like little boobies. And he pulls off. He's got this brand new, spanking new Adidas singlet, blue with stripes. And I'm thinking, oh, it's a pretty sweet singlet. Let's see if he can wrestle. Stud. Yeah. And that's what made me fall in love with wrestling, because I realized that it was truly, truly technique over muscle. And I think that's what people don't understand.
Well, it helps to have both.
Yes. If you have that base, then you're unstoppable.
It helps to have both.
You're unstoppable. But to see a guy come in, football player, no technique, hulked, and then see him get worked by a guy who's simply intelligent, right? Probably one of the most underrated things that people don't understand about wrestlers, because they, of course, education is the key to change their perception. They assume, same thing like they did in martial arts, that it's barbaric, it's this, but you got to go back to ancient Greek times. It's one of the oldest sports alive, period. And
it is.
Technique over muscle was what really...
Well, it's one stop that running was the oldest sport, marathon and all that. But then once they researched it further, they talked to some of the marathoners that were running.
That makes sense.
They found out they were running from wrestlers.
I was thinking, well, of course running goes. They're running from saber-toothed tigers.
They were from crazy wrestlers. So wrestling's the oldest sport. They created marathons.
Right. Great transition. I want to ask you, because you've been there, done that. Number one, before we go into diet, what do you think about the whole weight cutting thing? And I'm not talking about mixed martial arts. I'm talking about in wrestling. Obviously, our knowledge has increased. I think back to 7th grade, and someone told me that I had to chew gum and spit in a cup. Right? If you're a wrestler, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's one way to know that I'm not faking it. But really, you're dehydrating yourself. All the wrong things.
Dehydration.
What are your thoughts on that for anybody who's maybe being coached wrong, who's not thinking right? Because since I've learned, I feel that there is other ways to cut correctly.
There is
science.
Well, back in the day, and I think even in your day, probably maybe around the time you were wrestling, they had you had to now certify your weight. So they do hydration tests. They do your body mass.
When you're inside the water, body mass.
No, they do it differently. There's different ways now, technology-wise. They don't have to do the water submersion, but essentially they certify you as to what your lowest weight is that you can safely go. Versus before, back in our day, there was no certifications at all. You went whatever you could make, whatever you could get down to, the lowest you could get down to, which, again, it was, in many cases, detrimental to athletes' health. There was one year where 3 athletes died at the collegiate level that sparked the changes. So you had, in the span of 1 year, 3 deaths, and the NCAA completely overhauled the weight management program. Right. And it's also been done at the high school level. So now those extreme cutting practices have been mitigated by the certification process, which I think is a good thing.
Right. So where do you draw the line with some of your guys? Oh, I can go to this weight class, 25. You're like, no.
Well, first of all, they have to certify. So if they go through the process, the hydration, the body mass index test.
That will tell them you are no lower than this.
You cannot go, and that's shared statewide.
Right.
And so you can't cheat and go to a different tournament.
Right.
And it's shared on the web. So essentially, part of the weigh-in process is seeing where you certified at. And that is the way you can go.
So other people will hold them accountable if the coach undermines that, which is smart. I like that.
And if you do wrestle outside your weight or below weight, then you'll be sanctioned. So.
Yeah, you'll get called out for it. It's at the high school level. And is this the type of stuff you guys talk about at CIF?
This is the high school. This is CIF policy. It's also National High School Federation policy, and then at the NCAA.
Okay, wonderful. What's your term like at CIF? We mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if we mentioned it. To hear that you're serving on the CIF
Executive
board,
Committee.
The Executive Committee. So essentially, like I'm on the marketing board, and so we oversee most marketing advertising budgets local in the area. Your guys' job is usually vote on decisions like the one we just mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes, that would be something that would go through the Executive Committee.
Okay.
Exactly.
And aside from that, but does budget play a role?
Budget also, the direction of the California Interscholastic Federation in terms of the season of sports, how many competitions could athletes participate in. For wrestling, for example, is a 40-match rule.
Rules, disputes as well.
Those kind of rules. There's litigation at times that we have to deal with, and
your son or daughter gets cheated. Call Dr. Sanchez. No, he doesn't want to deal with that.
So
but those are the type of things that happen,
and it's not
as
just,
they work their way
it's
up.
not just wrestling. It's all sports, all 3 seasons: winter, fall, winter, and spring. So there's eligibility issues. There's athletic motivation. Students moving from one part of the state to another, or from one school to another. All that is
nutritional education.
The nutritional education also is huge. You want to get the edge when you're out on the mat, or when you're cycling or biking or running or whatever. The diet could be the edge. That could be the difference maker between you and your
perfect timing is going through my head. So we got past weight cutting. Last things. Trying to think value for those people. I know what I got to do. But diet, in your opinion, it's easy for me to talk, but when somebody who's been there, done that, what would you attribute? Give them 2 secrets, man. Give them bananas. What?
You want to make sure that you're, especially in sport of wrestling, very physically grueling, and you can't expect, a race car Ferrari to run on sand, or rocks, so what you put in your tank is very important. So high protein, and carbs of course are important for your fuel. Hydration is important as well. The better you eat and the better you treat your body, the harder you're able to train and push yourself. And you can't push yourself on an empty tank.
I feel hydration gave me a competitive edge if you do the discipline to do it and the night before, right, not the day of. And when you have 2 guys that are 100% equally matched, they say it becomes a battle of nutrition.
Yeah, what's in the tank? Right? What's in your tank? What's in your gas tank? What kind of fuel do you have?
And now we really see the emergence of good fats. You kind of heard that thing. I want to get your thought on it because come on, you're a stud with the same.
There's good fats.
The same breed. But what people essentially what I'm learning is carbs, essentially grains and breads. But if you're able to replace those because there's some gluten, things and stuff like that, and actually just simply take the bread, replace it with fats, but everything else is good protein. Obviously vegetables. And then eventually, I think it was ketogenic diet, but eventually your body starts to burn all those fats. Now, what fats are we talking about? Good fats, avocado, coconut oil, those type of things.
Yep. If you're not, if you're not allergic to peanuts, I mean, that's a source of protein.
Walnuts, macadamia nuts. Is that something you probably recommend? It depends on what you're training for.
Yeah, you gotta eat a balanced diet. You gotta have a balanced diet. You gotta feel good. The main thing is you're eating to feel good, and if what you eat makes you feel good, you're able to train at a high level, you're probably eating the right things.
Right.
But what you don't want to see is someone that's living on Red Bull, Monster drinks, those high energy drinks, and chasing it with M&Ms and Skittles.
Sugar.
Exactly, and getting all amped up. I mean, that's not the kind of diet you want to see.
Because inflammation or sugar attacks inflammation. Right? That's the biggest thing we see. So you get that little twist in the knee. And you got Skittles in the system, so run to it.
And it doesn't do anything for your muscle development. Your muscles are, they thrive on protein.
Right.
And so you got to feed your muscles as well. They do a lot of the heavy lifting.
All right, champ. Daily schedule. I don't want to say during the Shepherd days, but I don't want to say during Arizona State either because you're kind of disciplined by then already. How about independence? School is obviously a major factor. Okay, I'm changing my mind. After Arizona State, in that security guard phase, but yet you still want to go to the Olympics. Aside from work, where you can throw that in there, what was your daily regimen? You wake up.
You mentioned Shepherd Middle School, and I lived a couple miles away from Shepherd Middle School, so I would run to school. Wow. While kids were taking a bus, I was running to school. But by the time school started, I already had put in about an hour of workout. Independence was the same thing. Independence is a huge school. It's huge. It's 2 miles around. I mean, if you include Overflow Gardens, it's 2 miles. So I would run that for time every morning. And then there was Suncrest Mountain that was 2 miles away from the school just to get to the base of the mountain. Then you ran Suncrest. I mean, Suncrest is like this. The grade is enormous. So I would run that for time and then go back. Yeah. So that was just to start the day. I mean, that was before anybody even got to school. And so then, you get to school, then afterward, I'd lift at lunch, and then there was practice. Right. Then I would go to the 2-hour practice and do whatever everybody else did, and then stay after and work a little more. So that was just at the minimum, just to be a state champion, I had to do that. To be a national champion in high school, I had to do that. And when I got to the Olympic level, it was really just fine-tuning technique, competing against the best, and then, to be an Olympian, everybody's fighting for that. So you're going against several countries.
No secret, hard work.
Hard work.
No secret to it. Everybody wants a shortcut, right? Everybody wants the magic pill, but at the end of the day, the only magic pill is consistency.
Hard work. And this generation of kids needs to know that, because a lot of things are handed to our kids. The technology makes a lot of things accessible. Yeah. But
how do you feel about the 8th place trophy? You've heard the concept how some people are against giving a ribbon, giving a whatever for everybody because you didn't get first, you didn't get second. That it actually
I think participation's acknowledging participation is fine. I mean I didn't medal at the Olympics, but I got a participation token kind of that showed, hey, I was Olympian. Right. So that, I'm fine with that. But the thing about sports, people the results sort things out themselves. So when you're running or you're competing in the sport of wrestling,
everybody knows.
You know where you're at. The times tell you where you're at. Your height tells you what you've done. Your pole vaulting, which I also did. I ran cross country. I was a 3-sport athlete also, so I trained year round. Right. And so cross country was a tough sport. Because here's this bulky wrestler, and I'm running, and these skinny guys are just flying by me, and I'm just, but what it did is it kept me in shape. I ran in distances and courses that I would have never have even imagined. But, cross-country coach pushing me, running Alum Rock Park. I mean, that was just, it was just.
I did it in 7th grade.
Cardiac Hill, I mean, that thing was straight up.
I gave up after that meet in 7th grade. I'll be mad up and admit it. It was that Alum Rock Park ride. But obviously my body and mindset was completely different as I approached high school. But
and you go up against guys that are running in the 15s on a 3-mile course, and I'd be happy to break 20, 20 minutes. So and then pole vaulting was so the sports, the nature of sports is so competitive that where you stand. I mean, the times don't cheat, the distance don't cheat. Right. Your placing on the podium isn't cheat. It just
whether you get hardware or not makes no difference.
No.
In that way. Amazing. You and I can talk about wrestling, martial arts all day, but I want to keep getting back to leadership. And so after University of Phoenix, we have the Navy, and then it was North. I can't see it in my head.
North Central University.
North Central, where you got your PhD, and you chose organizational leadership.
Yes.
Why?
Well, because leading an organization, there's a lot of moving parts to it, a lot of pieces. There's people in the organization. There's the mission and vision of the organization, which you helped create. There in high school, for example, there's
so many moving parts.
District level, there's site level leadership. There's teachers you work with. There's the students, of course. There's the parent piece. There's the community piece, and there's the cultural piece of high school. You have your visual and performing arts. You have your athletics. You have your career tech education. At Gilroy High, we have a dual immersion program, one of just a few in the state. At the high school level, we have a biomedical science academy.
And so there needs to be a blueprint.
There needs to be...
Can be chaos, organized chaos.
Well, some days it feels like that. It does. But overall, the school runs well because we have good people in positions, in key positions that help it move along. And so, my assistant principals are amazing. My department chairs are amazing. This district level leadership has been tremendously supportive. We couldn't get anything done without them. Right. So the school board is also great here. I mean, I've heard. I've been in school districts where school boards are just dysfunctional and crazy and fighting. Here's not the case. We have a great superintendent, great district leadership, great site level leadership. I have great fellow principals that I work with as well. Great middle school feeders that I work very closely with their principals as well.
There are 2 others besides South Valley now, right?
Solorzano,
okay,
and Brownell Middle School and South Valley Middle School.
Okay. Why do you guys not? You don't have one indoor place to shoot hoops at? Man, my nephew lives here. Jazz's son. He keeps asking me over and over, and I'm like, well, hold on. So I start Googling with him. One of the old gyms in Gilroy used to have one, but now the closest thing is Morgan Hill 24 Hour Super Store, believe it or not. So what I keep telling him is, stop shooting outside, man. You need to get inside. You need to get in the environment. You need to go where? He's like, no, there isn't one. I'm like, don't you make excuses to me. Let me look it up. And I go, oh, crap, there isn't. It isn't one. But obviously, Gilroy High's got open gym going on once in a while.
They have open gym, and then there's also the basketball courts out by the tennis court.
The middle school with an S.
Solorzano.
Yeah, that's where they're doing most of it.
Yep,
summer leagues.
They're multi-purpose room and gym.
Yep, and so like that. But again, I'm going
NJB, AAU. I mean, just year-round competition in all sports, including wrestling's one of them. Basketball. Great. We host AAU and NJB level events here all the time.
The coach who played at Santa Clara University retired. He said he was approaching retirement. Or is he still coaching? Coach
Bud Ogden, who was a Santa Clara alumni and a member of the Hall of Fame of Santa Clara and NBA player, drafted number 1 in 1969.
I didn't know he was an NBA player.
And
he sat next to me at a dunk contest. We did a dunk contest with Subway Drive-Thru. We'll be doing that again.
I hope so. To get on that.
Another thing,
but he retired.
Continue on.
Yeah, he retired. Yeah, he was a stud. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, he was a
special ed teacher here for years.
If you don't mind me asking, so you're in charge of organizational leadership. How does it work? Educate me. Do you kind of have the say on, you're trying to become a teacher at Gilroy High School? They got to get past this desk first, or how does that process?
We work with human resources.
Uneducated.
First of all, you got to recruit the teachers. You
got to.
If there's an opening, we post an opening, and then we hopefully get a lot of interest in the position, and then we screen. HR helps screen, human resource screens them, make sure that they're qualified, they have the right credentialing, experience, and then from the screening process, we'll get 3 or 4 candidates, and then we interview them.
Right.
If we have 1 or 2 positions that are open, we'll offer. If they're good, we'll offer to the top candidate or second person, et cetera, and then they go through a whole process after that. Once if they accept the positions, fingerprinting, background clearance, contract, all that stuff. So we work closely with human resources to accomplish that. But it's we're in the South Valley, South County. We're the furthest city south of the Santa Clara County, which runs all the way up, of course, to Palo Alto.
Right.
So it's competitive, and we are not the highest paying district, but we're in a more affordable part of the county. So we have that going for us. And
so don't lie to me. As a leader, the toughest part of your job, you got to fire people.
At times, yes. At times, there are times the teachers aren't a good fit, and we have to make the decision to.
It's a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil, and again, iron sharpens iron. And at the end of the day, the big picture is it's for the kids.
It is. But the overwhelming majority of teachers,
you can avoid that by recruiting well in the first place.
Yes.
And I won't put you on the spot there. And how do you deal with that? Because it's pretty black and white. I've had to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have those crucial conversations. You got to have those tough conversations. Let's talk about the kids for a second. Obviously, the kids are great at Gilroy High School. We do have counselors, right?
We have a great student services department here that supports our students, and we have a great parent club. Also, it's amazing. They help with a lot of functions here on campus as well. Right. Our teaching staff is great. Some of my department chairs are leaders of each subject area. So we have great department chairs and 2 great assistant principals. Yeah,
so I'm trying to remember who educated
school.
Me on this CSU UC standards.
That would be your counselor
process. Yeah, and I remember my counselor did. Is it obviously mandatory? They got to come through there. They got to, or is it kind of more on them? It's a tough thing because the counselors aren't going to chase you down.
They will. Some cases they do. There's kids that are real close.
They'll thank them later.
Yeah, they need to retake a class, or they need to take
make sure they're taking the right classes.
Exactly. So their 4-year plan is important, and our graduation requirements have shifted to the CSU A through G requirements. So we went from requiring just 2 years of math and 2 years of science to now 3 years of math and 3 years of science, and of course the world language requirement as well. So we're lined up with the college acceptance standards.
Okay.
So we've really ramped up the rigor and expectations for our students. In the community service as well, 80 hours. Students are expected to complete 80 hours if they're here for 4 years. So that's another requirement that's changed in the last few years.
And just for the moms that are watching, graduation rate, pretty high, pretty.
Oh yeah,
solid.
above 90%. We were recognized for two of our signature programs, the dual immersion program. We got the California Golden Bell Award for that, and then the Hoffman Award, which is kind of like the Oscars, the Academy Awards for academic programs for Santa Clara County. Just last year for our Biomedical Science Academy, we have a waiting list for both programs. We take students from inside the district and outside the district, and it's bursting at the seams.
There's an ROTC segment here. What branch?
I wish there was an ROTC.
Okay.
That if I could wave my magic wand
funding
and add one more program,
funding stuff.
The ROTC would be it.
Yes, yeah. Because I think that's what's holding Mount Pleasant together, because they do a great job. They got kind of a Marine base going.
Nice.
Silver Creek's got their Navy thing, but those same gentlemen that I went back and saw Zoe Lofgren, our congresswoman, and saw same Master Sergeant, same thing, and such a small percentage.
ROTC also?
I was, yeah.
Nice.
Kind of during that transition year of my freshman year, I was at Mount Pleasant, and then Evergreen got built, and they didn't have portables, and Silver Creek had portables. But that played a huge factor on me as well. I feel that's so important. But hey, it's not out of the question. If anybody's watching out there to donate to Gilroy High School, I actually make a real difference.
ROTC program.
Yeah, that's one way to do it right there. But, we're going to keep talking, and 3 hours are going to fly by. Let me see if there's anything important. I know this is the one place Dr. Sanchez didn't want to be. His office is vacation time, and I dragged him in here, but I'm really grateful, and thank you, sir, for doing that.
No problem.
You're the man. Advice fresh out of ASU for others. Rolled out of bed, snuck out of bed last night, and was kind of, everyone talks about direction, passion, that if you do what you love, right, then the fire, the passion will come, the money will come. But if you just chase money, but you absolutely hate the job, people have certain situations where they have to be realistic. They got to feed kids and so forth. Another really tough question I'm throwing at you today. But I went through this phase where I'm reading all these self-help books, these motivational books, these law of attraction, which I'm actually huge on visualization and those type of things. For that kid out there who, the Mustang just graduated, trying to decide between Gavilan or, he wants to go to school, and I've heard this many times, but mom and dad and money, and I got to work it. What would be your advice to them, aside from patience, which they all...
We encounter that all the time. I mean, for example, this last class of 2017 just graduated. We had several of them go on to a 4-year, several. And we had several, even more, go on to a 2-year. We had some go to vocational ed schools. We had some go to the military. Our mission statement states that we have 4 years to prepare you for 4 university, a 2 university, vocational ed, or the military, or the workforce. They're all viable options, and we want to make sure that when they leave our school, they have the skills, literacy-wise, to be able to fill out an application, talk and articulate what they want, what to accomplish on a job. Or vocational ed is a great route as well. We need skilled labor in the workforce immediately, and we have a huge career tech education program here as well. So we have culinary arts, we have auto shop, we have wood shop, we have small engines, we have veterinary science, we have programs on this campus that have been decimated in other school districts because there was such a focus on just going to college. And the reality is, some of our students are not going to go directly into a college or a university, and a lot of them are inclined to use their skills in vocational ed.
And how do you find out what those are? You got to try. You got to dabble.
Exactly.
And sometimes we get into analysis paralysis. We'll spend so much time analyzing a situation instead of just pulling the trigger, jumping in. You got to ask, and sometimes you'll figure out things along the way. And if it ended up not being the thing, but you met one person there who led you to the other thing, it would have never happened if you wouldn't have went for that
There's
thing.
planning and studying and that goes involved, but there's also action.
Yes.
So the PSA, planning and studying, and there's also you got to pull trigger and put it into action, and that's where the planning goes into an organization like a high school. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're not just a 9-12 school district; we're a K-12 school district. So we have the benefit of having leadership overseeing all 12 grades versus, say San Jose, for example, Eastside Union High School District is a high school district, and there are several elementary districts that feed into it. Right. So that is, I think, it can be a lot more complicated than having your K-12, like San Jose Unified, for example, another right. K-12 unified school. Morgan Hill, K-12 unified. So you're not dealing with feeder districts. The vision of this district and the system is all under one roof. Right. And that's very helpful for us moving forward and making Gilroy High the school it is today. Right.
We think about private schools, pros, cons. That kid is, a private school sets them up for better. I have my own theories, of course, because I'm wacky like that. Sister went to Mount Pleasant. She's an MD. Right. So can you say that environment definitely helps, but essentially it's on the person regardless of where they go? Because I think you also got to be a chameleon. Depending on what you do, if you're a NASA rocket scientist, you don't got to talk to anybody, right? And I think it's so important to have diversity, not just diversity of race, but diversity of gender, right? You sent somebody to an all-girls school, all-high school. And these are just personal opinions. None of these are facts.
Right.
What are your thoughts of public school education versus private?
Well, the reality is, it's competitive now. There's a lot more options for students now than existed back in my day, certainly.
West Catholic, man, is taking Shibuya, Quimby, all our athletes. Nobody goes ever.
It's competitive. So you have charter schools, you have your private schools, you have schools with a special niche, a special program they offer. So there's a lot of options for our students. I think it's a matter of fit. And I'm not saying that public school is the only way to go.
There's no one size fits all.
But it has to fit the family, it has to fit the student, and it has to work for everyone. And so finding out what fits is important. And Gilroy High School meets a lot of needs. Right. We have a lot of programs here, a lot of opportunities for students. Mm-hmm. I always tell students there's something here for everyone. And so you got to just find your way. And of course, regardless of where you go, you're going to have to deal with the whole teen issues the relational issues and social issues.
That's not going to change.
That's not going to change.
It's what are your needs? What are your wants?
Exactly.
And if Gilroy has the best, for example, robotics program, and you can afford private school, but you want to go to Gilroy because of their robotics or their wrestling program and so forth. So,
well, our valedictorian who just graduated, I remember he had an option to go to any school he wanted to. He was a high caliber kid. Mm-hmm. He went to Bellarmine like his father did. He could have went to any school, Monte Vista Christian. He was shopping around. He did his homework, and he visited here, and he says, I want to come here. Right. And he ended up graduating. He's going to be at Columbia University. Wow. But, we have, I always say, hey, if you want to consider Gilroy High, and it's like when I talk with the realtors at the tours, families that have their apprehensions about Gilroy High for whatever reason, because of the past, have them come down and visit. Yes. I will give you a private tour. Mm-hmm. I have a PR letter that I sent them that highlights all the
Don't knock it until you try it.
Exactly. Just come and see. And I've extended that invitation. And as a result, I've had families here that they said, hey, I want to send my student here. And they have done very well. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very proud of that.
Two more things, and we'll wrap up. Your advice to kids on criticism and the opinions of others. And I know it sounds, they hear it enough on Facebook and YouTube that just be this, do this, but again, acting on it. I don't want to say, kids these days are too sensitive. We're all self-conscious. We're all a little sensitive. Words do hurt. Sure. But what would be your advice on resilience, especially if there's something you want to do? Because oftentimes, even the ones that we love, the voices from our moms, dads, etc., what we're doing, or just criticism in general, what would be your your advice to them? That's crazy.
Well, I would say this, and I always keep going, because back in the day, because in the 80s we didn't have social media. We didn't have the 24/7 cycle of exposure. And so what I would encourage this generation to do is to just be mindful of how much time you spend on social media, and exposing yourself to other people's views and opinions. First of all, you got to know who you are. You got to know what you're about, and those values that you have, that your parents are instilling with you, they're affirming in you. Be true to yourself, and you're going to go through life, and life is tough. There's going to be some people that aren't going to be your fan, and you're not going to, you're not going to connect with them. Don't take it personal. Don't internalize it. Don't internalize everybody's opinion about you, and take the good and filter out the bad, and stay focused on your goals and your destiny in life.
Aristotle said it best. The only way to avoid criticism is be nothing, do nothing, say nothing. Hence, there is no way to avoid criticism. People are always going to have their opinions, but no, really, really well said. As athletes, we're always taught to focus on their weaknesses. Roman, your left-hand layup sucks. Work on your left-hand layup. And that was my theory. I think that made me a better person throughout my whole life. Just these past 3 years, I've been hearing from a career perspective, back to self-awareness, that you're going to suck at taxes or whatever, hire an accountant. There's this theory of, be aware of your weaknesses, but how about we say, forget about focusing so much time on your weaknesses, and let's recognize your strength and double down on your strengths. What are your thoughts of those two schools of thoughts? Do you think what I said second is obviously better for career? You don't want to do that in athletics, right?
I think there's
people expose your weaknesses.
What I've learned in life, I've lived long enough, is there's no single one answer to how to approach life. You have to make the best out of the situation you're in.
Experiment, try.
And push. I always try to push myself professionally. I always try to expose myself to new ideas. I like to interact with teachers and educators and principals and from other districts and other schools. And
have an open mind.
Open mind, and then listening to the parents and finding out what's important to them and what's important to the students.
I agree. It's almost poison to think that one way is the way in that way. Especially even when it comes to when you reach your level and ran 2 miles, you have to find a way to shock your muscles in a different way, right? Which if that ends up meaning using TRX, whatever that's called, just because you've never felt it before, going to Bikram yoga and being open to that because you're so darn bulky, right? Opening up your shoulders and that really.
And if you listen to the whispers, you won't have to hear the screams, as I said. So there's always the undercurrent of what's going on in the community, what's going on in the school community. So that's why I try to get out and interact with students. I try to make it visible, accessible as much as possible. I don't live in my office. And just getting out there with the kids, getting in the classrooms.
Listen to the whispers.
And keeping your ear to the ground and being in touch with the students that you're charged with serving and providing the very best environment for them. So that's what I try to do day in, day out. Some days are easier than others.
Right. I think that's another thing that athletics comes from is it kind of builds that self-confidence, not towards others, but as far as self-awareness, because wrestling, I think personally at the end of the day, it's you versus yourself, right? You hear that a lot, and then the more you're fighting yourself, what happens later is then you can completely help others because you fought yourself so much, right, in that constant mental battle. I think this was an amazing talk. Let me see if there's any thing, and I know we got a little deep in emo on you, but at the end of the day, it's all about value, and I think we talked about things that a lot of people would be like, damn, he's absolutely right. And Dr. Sanchez being the role model that he is, that anybody who wants to achieve that, you got to do that. I always say, I don't care if you want to be the best yarn knitter in the world. Find out who the best yarn knitter is, who's number one, and go talk to them. And if you can't go talk to them, find out what they're doing and try to mimic them in some way. It's not copying, but you make it your own and you do it better. But guess what? They must be doing something right.
Yeah,
right? And that's the best way to leapfrog to where you want to be.
Those life lessons that the Chinese say, if you want to know what's down the road, ask those coming back.
Right.
And so people that are further along in their career, further along in life, that are older than you, that have experience, and maybe in a career that you're interested in, they learn some lessons. They're further down the road than you are.
That was brilliant.
And they've come back.
You just dropped deep quotes. I wish I would have churned this out of you.
They're coming back, but you got to listen. You got to listen to what you've got to be willing to listen, and the life lessons that they learned, that so you won't have to repeat those mistakes. Listen to those mistakes, download it, get it in your memory, and then, hey, ask for advice. You know, a lot of kids don't want to do that. They just want to just, they're on their own. They think they can just do it on their own, and they find out they crash and burn. Had they talked to someone that had been down that road and has come back and has life lessons from it, you won't have to experience that. You be further along in that.
So much energy.
Exactly.
It reminds me of Steve Jobs' quote that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And I feel that's so key in whatever endeavor you're doing. And it really shortcuts the process. You want to be an MD, go talk to an MD or somebody. Okay, they're going to right away say, well, whatever you do, don't do this. That's where I screwed up. And right there, you're where you just saved your parents $20,000 down that road.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so important.
Changing majors 4 or 5 times in college, your parents are paying for it. I mean, it's a lot easier to do that because your parents are paying for it.
Yes.
If you just get the right counsel ahead of time, you interact with people that are in the profession already that you want to be in, it can give you a better sense of what that career is like. So those apprenticeships are really important.
Without reading
job shadowing.
Without reading any of this, we just about hit everything that I wanted, except for I think we kind of did this. The freshman kid is going to okay, we did that. Right hook, advice. Ooh, okay, the last one in case he's watching. This is just for fun. Who's a one wrestler growing up? And you saw this, that, and it's funny because that guy who was a pain in the ass, who pushed us the most, who did that, it's funny how 5 years later, 4 years later, even though he was your rival, you end up respecting each other more than anything. Or not, unless you're completely douche.
I have a few people.
Who would be your one? Give them.
First of all, I want to thank.
Give them the credit.
I want to thank my teammates that in the room, whether it was at Shepherd, Independence, or Arizona State, for pushing me. I mean, I could not have achieved the things at the level I had without having some tremendous workout partners. So I want to give a shout out to all of them. They're awesome. But there were some wrestlers that I had a lot of respect for, even now.
Just kept running into each other.
They were just tough. Tom Brands was a Olympic champion in '96. Same year he was a freestyle Olympic champion. I was in Greco-Roman wrestling. So there's 2 styles of wrestling in Olympics. One is named after you, by the way. So it's Greco-Roman. So, but Tom Brands was an Olympic champion.
You're smiling in his face. You're like,
three-time NCAA champion. He was a monster. I never beat him. I was 0-5 against him. The closest I ever came to beating him, the closest I ever came was 7 or 8 points. Right. And he was that tough. Right. He was a monster. He's the current coach of University of Iowa. I mean, so he's solid. Kerry Kolat was a world medalist a few times. He was a monster. Alan Freed, another stud out of Oklahoma State, and then Kendall Cross was an Olympic champion for Oklahoma State. I wrestled him 7 times.
Never fun.
0-7 against him. 1-0 one time.
Right.
Came really close, but he was, he was Olympic champion also in '96. So the guys that I've wrestled against that I was never quite able to beat. Right. They either won world or Olympic championships, and 2 of them in the same Olympics. I were in freestyle.
That's life. People. Imagine if you had them in the wrestling room.
Oh,
how much that would have.
Yeah,
and that's what people have to understand, that when you get your butt whooped by Kendall Cross constantly, then all of a sudden you go and you wrestle Joe Schmo, you're wiping the floor with him. But it's really like that weight vest type thing that if you're, and it comes to basketball, it comes to everything, if you're beating everyone on the court where you're at, and I tell all the kids who ask me this, you gotta go play somewhere else. Yeah. You gotta, and it's nothing against them, it's nothing against that, but you have to test your waters, and that's what Fernandez said, because I thought, my ego's through the roof. I thought I was the man. So he goes, I want you to go to West Valley College, and I want you to play in the summers. Yep. You have to be invited, but I'm going to make sure, and you can only run with the 5. I walk in, and the Lopez twins are there from Stanford. All these guys from San Jose State.
The level of play is just...
And that humbled me real quick. But what it really did is I got my butt whipped, that it really catapulted me as well. It let me know, testing the waters is what he meant. This is where I got to be on the level playing. And most kids, they don't even say that. So 50% of it is, participating, but we have to be honest, 50% of it is networking, who you know, those type of things, which is why, Gilroy High School, if this is wrestling's what you love, would really help you out because they're going to surround you by that strength of schedule and around those things.
Yep.
If you want to be at the levels that you say you do, you know. But what an honor, what a pleasure. I always came here to hang out with you for 10, 20 minutes, but never did we have this, this type of talk. So
sure.
I want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Marco Sanchez. He's recently inducted in the California Wrestling Hall of Fame with Daniel Cormier, who's got a fight coming up at 205 with John Jones.
Who lives down the street.
Who lives down the street in Gilroy. So, but just to show you, was also an amazing decorated wrestler. Most of you guys know that already, but these are the type of things that I just wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Dr. Marco Sanchez. I hope it brought you guys value. And also, if you're thinking about moving to Gilroy, what better personal insight than being the principal to know what to expect, who's going to put your kid in a headlock if he goes wrong, does something wrong. But I just want to say thank you again, sir, and I'm indebted. Thanks so much for this.
It's an honor, a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you, Roman.
Cheers. Sweet.